What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike, and today I'm back with a special treat for all of you beginner bodybuilders on YouTube who are looking for your first ever bulking cycle. This video is primarily going to be for that group of people who's probably in the 21 to 25-year-old range. You kind of feel invincible and you don't want to do a whole lot of your own research. You probably don't know anything about 5-alpha reduction or aromatase expression or, all of the possible side effects that could come from prolactin or high estrogen. You probably never heard of the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. You just want to know, what cycle can I take to get as jacked as fuck as fast as fuck? If that's who you are, this cycle is definitively for you. But before we get started, please let me give the disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I am a coach. You can hire me for coaching, but I am not recommending that anybody break the law. This is not medical advice. This is pure and simply us just having a conversation about what a person could do if they happen to have this particular mindset. So if you're one of these people who's been weightlifting for a little while and you're just looking to hop on a cycle and you don't want to do a lot of groundwork, you're just looking for something you can copy and paste, you don't really want to have to learn a lot of shit, you just got out of high school or college and you kind of tapped out with all the learning. It's just like, hey bro, tell me how I can look like you. Tell me how I can get jacked as fuck in the shortest period of time possible. This is the cycle for you. So if you've done any research at all, if you've watched More Plates, More Dates, or Greg Doucette, or Ryan Ankrum, or Ryan Russo, you've probably heard them tell you something like the best beginner cycle is somewhere between 200 milligrams of test, C or E per week, up to maybe a maximum of 500 milligrams of test per week. The old school conventional knowledge was 500 milligrams of test was a good starter cycle, and then people sort of started dialing that back, and they're like, no, you really don't need more than 200 or 300 milligrams as a beginner cycle, because they will tell you that you have virgin receptors. Basically, your body has never been exposed to high androgen levels, and so it's going to respond really well to no matter what you'll take. The problem is that these same, supposed gurus will tell you things like you have a limited number of blasts in your tank. There's only so many cycles that you can run in life before you start to really run into problems. And so the conventional wisdom that you have a limited number of blasts in your tank, but you only want to start with a low amount of compounds, really doesn't make sense when you really think about it. You're probably looking to try to put on 30, 40 pounds of muscle. This is probably what you've envisioned, that basically you can go from, a 5'10", 150 pound guy, and you're going to become Jay Cutler in your first cycle. If that's what you're looking for, you're definitely not going to get there on 200 milligrams or even 500 milligrams of test. It's just not going to happen. If you do a beginner cycle in that range of androgens, you're probably only going to put on 10, maybe 15 pounds of muscle. No one's really going to notice a huge difference. You're certainly not going to suddenly become a god that can just walk into the club and pick any girl he wants. And so if you're looking for something a little bit more aggressive, and like I said, you don't want to be bothered with all of the boring science and research, here is a cycle that you could take to take advantage of this idea that you only have a limited number of blasts in your tank and that you have virgin receptors. Because in my experience, the receptor seems to be virginal to every compound you take. So like the first time you take testosterone, your body really responds and changes. The first time you take DECA, it really responds and changes. The first time you take Tren. But after that, like the second, third, fourth time you run a compound, your body seems to have kind of already figured it out, and it doesn't respond in the same remarkable way as your first ever cycle. So to me, if you're looking for the I'm 21 to 25, I don't know fuck all about bodybuilding and I really don't care, I just want to get jacked as fuck cycle that I can just copy and paste that I found some random dude on YouTube talking about, this is going to be that cycle. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to take advantage of all of those virgin receptors all at once. Instead of running 500 milligrams of test C for say 16 to 20 weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to deploy a number of compounds all at once so that we can get that virginal receptor gain on every one of the compounds in our first ever steroid cycle. So it would look something like this. We would do test C or E at 300 milligrams per week. We would run DECA at 200 to 300 milligrams per week. We're going to have trenbolone in this cycle at 200 milligrams per week. And then for our oral, we're going to add in 50 milligrams per day of anadrol, or you could start with 30 milligrams a day for D-ball. On the orals, we're only going to want to run that oral for about 6 weeks. And then at the end of our cycle, the last 6 weeks of our cycle, we could swap and put the other oral in. So if you started with D-ball in the first 6 weeks, then you could do anadrol in the last 6 weeks. And we're going to want to run this cycle anywhere between 16 and 20 weeks long. Now, please understand, if you employ this cycle, you are going to have a whole host of negative side effects that are likely going to occur. But again, since you don't really care a whole lot about aromatase expression or 5-alpha reduction, we're not going to bog you down with all of the gory details. I will give you an idea, though, that during this cycle, you are likely going to have an increase in estrogen and prolactin, and that could cause a litany of side effects. For example, it could cause you to start growing breast tissue. It could cause you to start actually lactating milk from your nipple. It could cause things like decadic. It could cause a whole host of problems. But again, since you're really just looking for like the balls deep, I don't give a shit about the consequences cycle, then you're probably not going to be too concerned with all of the possible negative things that could happen. But just in case, we're definitely still going to want to have a Remedex and a drug like cabergoline on hand to offset the estrogen side effects and the prolactin side effects. And since I know you don't want me to bore you with all of the science and tell you to go get blood work and all of these things that you probably can't afford anyway, because again, you're 21 to 25 years old, you've done none of your own research, and you're just looking to copy and paste something, let me help you to be able to determine whether or not you have a problem. So what we can use as men, and keep in mind, this is a bulking cycle. This is a cycle that we're going to use for maximal fucking growth. What you want to do is pay close attention to your penis. That is going to be the metric by which you judge whether or not you're having side effects that need to be treated. You're going to want to pay attention to your nipples and to your psyche. So, for example, if you start noticing that you are developing breast tissue, your nipples are itchy and puffy and hurt, that that you're crying during movies like chick flicks, that you're suddenly bursting out into tears, and you seem to be carrying a whole lot of water, your face is kind of round shaped, and you seem very puffy all over, this is a sign that your estrogen level is too high. And you want to start dosing yourself with a drug called Remedex. And when you start taking the Remedex, it will lower your estrogen level and you'll lose the water retention, and your nipple sensitivity and itching and pain will subside. But if you go too far, for example, if you suddenly start noticing that you have absolutely no sexual interest in women, you're tired all the time, your joints hurt, this is a sign that your estrogen level is too low and you want to dial back on the Remedex. On the other side of the fence, if you start noticing that your nipples are very puffy and they're maybe even lactating, it appears that you're producing milk from your nipple. If you're having something called decadic, which is where you have a desire to have sex with a girl, but you can't get an erection or you can't maintain one, so maybe you picked up some hottie from some back alley, or you were at a bar or a club, or you picked up one P. Diddy's girls, and this girl's smoking fucking hot, but for some reason you just can't get in the game, this is definitively a sign that your prolactin level is way out of range, and you're going to want to start dosing yourself with cabergoline. So as you start introducing the cabergoline into your system, then you will notice that your dick will start working again. You'll probably stop lactating. You'll probably be less depressed. But if you go too far, if you keep knocking your prolactin level down too far, then what will happen is you'll suddenly realize that you have no sexual refractory period. So when you have sex, you can just do it over and over and over again. You don't even have to wait, because you don't have, normally when you have sex and you finish, then you're satiated. You don't want any more. Your body won't even allow you to perform again. If your prolactin level gets too low, you don't have that refractory period, and you can go over and over and over again, which the first time this happens to you, you're probably gonna think, man, this is really great. The problem is that it'll also start affecting your erections negatively, and your orgasm will not feel very strong at all. So it's like, hey, I can have sex 10 times a day, but I don't really enjoy it. If that occurs, then this is a sign and symptom that your prolactin is too low, and you're gonna want to dial back on the cabergoline dose. So you're gonna have to play with it back and forth, because like I said, you're not really interested in learning about hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. You're not really learning about 5-alpha reduction and how that creates DHT and can cause swelling of the prostate. You certainly don't care about aromatase expression and how your body makes its own estrogen. These things are going to be something that you're going to be concerned with down the road when you get into the more intermediate level steroid use. What you're looking for is basically just to become as jacked as fuck as possible in the shortest amount of time. So let me disclaim this. I don't want to mislead you. This is going to be one hell of a fucking roller coaster ride, psychologically and physically, if you attempt this cycle. You are going to be unfucking godly strong on this cycle. You're going to be adding 50 to 100 pounds on all of your max lifts. You are going to have so much energy, you are probably barely going to be able to sleep at night. In fact, you may find out that you only need 4 to 5 hours of sleep to actually get in the gym and hit another 2 to 3 hour workout. If you're in a relationship, you are almost certainly going to destroy that relationship, because this particular cycle is going to make you feel like you are absolutely God Almighty, and no one in your presence is deserving of your deity. So you are probably going to be psychopathic at work, psychopathic on the road. You are likely going to destroy every single relationship that you have, but you're not going to really care about it, because at the end of the day, you're God, and none of these people really deserve to be in your presence anyway. You probably have an entire stable of girls lined up, probably again that you sourced from P. Diddy or fucking Epstein Island, and so you don't really care about the fact that you're burning bridges left and right, because there's always just another girl who's ready to come along and be your fuck toy. So from this perspective, things could not possibly be better. But understand that, like I said, this is going to be a massive roller coaster. It is going to cause you to have out of control roid rage, road rage. You will probably lose your job. There is no telling how many possible negative things could happen to the relationships in your life, but you're really not going to care about this. You're probably going to care about absolutely nothing other than eating, fucking, and lifting. That is going to become your whole life, because you are going to be growing so rapidly on this cycle that every head in the gym is going to turn. Every person in your life that you come into contact with is going to definitively know you are on cycle. You are on blast. You have become a completely different person. Your confidence and aggression are going to be through the roof. Your self-esteem is going to be through the roof. You are going to literally feel like God in every sense of the fucking word. And you are going to get to experience this for 16 to 20 weeks. Typically in a cycle, I would recommend somebody use a drug like HCG so that their testicles don't shrivel up into the size of grapes, leading to you being basically more or less infertile. But if you have chosen to take this cycle, then I'm definitely not going to recommend HCG, because we definitively do not want you getting any girl that you could possibly come into contact with knocked up. If this is your mentality, if this is the cycle that you have chosen to take, we certainly do not want to risk you infecting the rest of the population with your affecting the rest of the gene pool. So the fact that you will be effectively infertile during this cycle is probably going to be good for you and everyone else around you. So we're not going to have to worry about something like HCG. And again, if this is the cycle that you choose to run, we're not really going to be worried about fertility or recovery at the end of the cycle, because by the time you get to the end of the cycle, you're almost certainly going to be in prison or in some form of the correctional facility, because the amount of aggression that you are going to be experiencing is going to be a true test of your mettle. This is going to be a rite of passage, the likes of which you have never seen. This cycle will 100% separate the men from the boys. Very few will survive this cycle, but if you prove to be up to the task, you will get jacked as fuck in absolutely no time. In 20 weeks, you will be an absolutely different person when you come out the other side. If, and that's a big if you should survive it. So again, for those of you who are probably in that 20 to 25-year-old range, who feel like you are fucking invincible to begin with, who care about nothing other than being jacked with six-pack abs and fucking veins busting out of your neck, you don't want to bore yourself with learning all of the things about how your body functions, how to protect your liver, how to control your lipids, how to control your various different hormones in your body. You're just looking for the quickest possible way to get jacked as fuck and to get the most attention from the people around you, because you want to feel cool for doing steroids. You want to be that guy who's 20, 22 years old, jacked as fuck on trenbolone, the godfather of all steroids, the steroid that every punk-ass kid in America is just dying to try and doesn't care about the side effects. This is definitively the cycle for you. Do not let the haters lie to you and perpetuate this dream that you are going to become some kind of bodybuilding god overnight on a 200, 300, even 500 milligram test cycle. It's just not going to happen for you. Okay, that is for the other 98% of the population who does not want to push the boundaries like you do. You are the kind of person who cannot be told, no, you need to experience things for yourself. You need to pave your own way. This is the cycle for you. You will see absolutely unfucking fathomable results if you can survive it. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, then by all means, copy and paste, go see your buddy, your local dealer, whoever you can legally, of course, get these drugs from, and then start down the pathway to transforming yourself from the 150-pound mortal book nerd that you may be into an absolute bodybuilding god in T-minus 20 weeks. As always, thank you for watching, and maybe we'll see you on the next one.